Hello, everyone, and welcome to another. So this is an exclusive episode of Candid Convos with Anna B. Clearly, Anna B is not in the house at this moment. We have been invited and asked to host this show and just get this program going. I'm sure you know me, Brighton, and this is my, I would say friend, but that's kind of a derogatory given. He's also my uncle. Cedric, welcome Cedric. Thank you for joining us. So today, you see, it's just guys, and we're just gonna have a guy conversation. We're just gonna see we're gonna be talking about what it's like being a man, and being a father, all that entails. Just to, I guess, start the conversation, and we'll see how it goes. It's really open-ended, and we'll take it from there. And before we continue, please remember to like, share, subscribe. And that's it. So without further ado, let's get going.
Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. We'll try and draw on as many experiences as we've had, on the lessons that we've had as we've grown up from young boys to young men to now middle-aged men.
Whoa, I'm not there yet. Yes, we are getting old. We're both fathers, family men, and we're all out in the diaspora. We're out here in Sydney, Australia, and I guess maybe we can start from there. What's been the experience, leaving Africa and coming out here, and I guess what can you say about that?
I found it to be quite a journey, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
I think I probably left South Africa prior to that, Zimbabwe, with a lot of assumptions in my head about what reality would be like in Australia, in Sydney, Australia. And which is why I use the word journey, because I feel like year after year, month after month, there's certain opportunities and challenges that come up that you learn from. But as you're going through it, it's very difficult to see the lesson in the challenge or the opportunity.
I guess I'd agree with it. It's really quite, the difference is stark. It's a whole mindset. They always talk about culture shock. The mindset and the culture and how things are done here is just so different. If you just look at the way so many things are electronic and automated, and almost everything, you don't need to carry around papers, and in Africa you're used to, I remember when I was working in Mozambique, if I wasn't at my home, I had to move around with my passport or some kind of my permanent residency, my work permit, that kind of thing. Then out here, you just move as you are. Everything is somewhere in a system, and that's just something like it, So it's really quite different. And I know, even back when we were in Africa, having maids and having all this help, and you've got family around, whether it was having family around if you're in Zim or if you are in a different country but still in Africa, you would be able to afford help. It was really affordable. It was cheap even, and so there was no pressure, you didn't have to be so hands-on. Then you come out here and, man, I didn't do diapers back in Africa. Let's just be real. But now I'm a pro. I can do it with my eyes closed, So how has that also been on your end?
I found it. I was sharing with my dad the other day, who's 82, by the way.
Wow.
Nice. We were just talking on the phone, and it was like, oh, what are you doing? I'm hearing a lot of clinking and clanking in the background. I was like, oh no, I'm washing the dishes. I'm trying to make dinner for the girls before I wash my daughters to take them to bed. And he had a little bit of a shock moment because I could just hear silence on the phone. It's like, why are you doing that?
Exactly.
But the penny dropped in my mind. He's from a different generation, right?
That's true.
I think it leans into what you're saying around. You come here expecting life to be a certain way, but I think as men, we are probably called on to, adapt a lot of the assumptions and a lot of the things that we saw growing up, right? So that we can flourish in this very different reality in diaspora.
I think I can, you're talking about your dad and being surprised. I remember, I talk to my brother, almost on a daily basis and, over the phone, and there was a time in the early days, he'd be like, every time I call, it's like you're doing something.
Yes.
You know, either I'm doing the dishes, I'm feeding the kids, I'm bathing the boys. There is always something like, don't you ever? And you know, he couldn't really relate. And I remember I was telling him that, you know, I wish I could afford it. Like one time, like just get all my family and just fly them out here and let them see what it's like. Because, and I understand how they don't get it, because I can tell you, I've been here like 5 years, and I can tell you 5 years ago, if someone had been telling me what I would want to tell them now, I would not believe them. And so I would want, you'd have to experience it to see it for yourself. You know, you're the maid, you're the gardener, you're everything, and you are 100% with the, and you know, with the young kids, you know, you have to be there, like they're toddlers. You can't get a kid hurt. You know, you've got social service and all that. They'll be all over you.
All over, yeah.
So you know, and it's a lot of work for just to say to the wife, "Hey, this is your problem," and just to turn around and act like nothing. You know, so the approach and what you have to do as a man is so different. And I think even, you know, because I don't know about you, but I watched a lot of like YouTube videos about Zim and all that, and it seems to be that's also not happening even in Africa, that times are changing, and men also need to take on a more hands-on approach to being involved in the family, because I think, you know, the cost of living is going up. It's more expensive to have help. Jobs are harder to come by. So men need to pick up some of that weight. You know, you can't just dump it all on your wife, because at the end of the day, they are your children.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because I think the process of adapting to that new reality, right? Like internally as a man, everything inside me is saying no, you know, like your whole being is complaining inside of you and saying, hey, this something is wrong here, you know. But at the same time, as a husband, as a father, I think for us men, it's important for us to take responsibility, right? To provide, right? But I think in this context, the word provide carries a different meaning. It's not just about paying the bills, right? In actual fact, I think paying the bills is probably one of the things that are lower down on the priority list.
The baseline.
Yes, that's like you haven't started. You pay the bills, but you haven't started making a contribution to the success of your family. Which is where I think, because I think, say you have that baseline, right? If you have kids, you bring in the kids, you say, okay, we need to make sure that the house is generally clean, right? On an ongoing basis. We need to make sure that the kids are generally fed. We need to make sure that their clothes are generally ready for them to go to school, go to church, and all of these things, right? And then there is your partner, right? Because you're one, right? After you get married, you're one. It's like you're supporting them through all of the changes that they're going through as a woman, right? Coming into this context. But you are also working through it yourself and learning. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize, almost in a very reactive way, as it were. But I think as a man, it's important to be vulnerable about those things that we go through. It's very easy to like just internalize it and just, you know, work as if nothing is happening. Meanwhile, inside you're running like a duck.
You can calm on the surface, but you're pedaling like crazy underwater. That's so true. And now that you talked about that, like, you know, there are those pressures that come with being, you know, a parent, and but particularly a man in this instance, as we're focusing on ourselves. And you look in this context with all this difference that you have to adapt. You know, you have to survive. There's no two ways about it, you know. And I mean, there's the reality that, you know, we've been here a few years, and we've already seen quite a few families or couples, you know, experience breakups and divorces. And, you know, those are some of the pressures that, you know, no one talks about, because there are all these things going on. Like, and I think the more traditional you may be, and you come out here, and then you're faced with this new reality. And then you're like, you were just a man back in Africa, you sat back, it was cultural, traditional, you didn't do anything, you went to work, and then you brought home the bread, and that was the beginning and end of your duties. Maybe every now and then if you need to mow the lawn, you'll do that, but outside of that, that's it. And then you come out here, and then your wife is complaining, look, I can't handle this, I can't deal with this, she's coming at you, and you don't understand it. You don't get it, and that's one of those things. But, you know, I think a good thing, for me, I know, like, when we came out here, like I think we were fortunate because we lived in Mozambique before we came here, and so and Mozambique we were alone again, so we lived as a family alone, and it's a foreign country with a foreign language, so we basically stayed together as a unit. We didn't go out or socialize too much, so I was sort of like slowly brought into that culture of helping out, doing the dishes, small things. So when we came here, the jump wasn't so big for me, but when you're out here, you then see that like, hey, it's a real big step,
It's very big.
It's one of those things that, hey, it's crazy, it's hard to explain because you really do everything. And as a man, like, how do you then, because we end out here, before we came out here, we was talking about, in Africa, you don't talk about mental health, but now everywhere, mental health.
Yeah.
And now there's men's mental health, and that's another sort of taboo thing. Even today, you go to the workplace. I remember where I was working at one company, they'd be like, no, there are these forms, if you need any help, you can fill it, it's all confidential. But you'd be like, at the back of your head, be like, okay, you're telling me it's confidential, but I get the feeling someone will know, and this will blacklist me further down the road. So as much as you're saying that, I don't really trust it. So as men, I don't know about you, like, how do you then cope? I know, like, maybe I'm not talking too much, give you a chance to talk. We do a lot of we have that in common. We like reading, enjoy reading, listening to podcasts, and we enjoy C.S. Lewis and the fictions, the Jack Reachers, that kind of thing. So that's something that we get to escape, we get to relax, to get to calm down. I don't know about you, like one of my tricks is when I because I do most of the shopping and the groceries, when I go to the shops I take my time, milk it
just
for
have a break.
Exactly, milk it for what it's worth. A 15-minute journey turns into 30 minutes, and you come back calm. And speaking of that, there was this joke I saw on social media where they were saying, whenever a man gets home and he parks his car in the driveway in the garage, and it takes him about 10 minutes to get into the house, he'll be praying. So I don't know about you. What do you do? How do you cope with these things?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting subject because it's different for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the penny dropped for me. I was actually reading one of Jordan Peterson's books about how as men we need to take personal responsibility for our lives and the people that we love and care for. But what he said was he was sharing a story around he went to visit some friends. He walked into their house, and little things he noticed. Maybe there was a dirty coffee cup next to the TV, or the wedding cake was still on the table, unopened. Maybe a couple of wedding presents were still up on the cupboard, unopened. And he mentioned that it in itself is a sign that there's a conversation that you and your partner need to have, but are avoiding to have. So I kind of thought about that in the context of my life, and I just paused and looked around the house, right? And I noticed a blanket on the floor. I noticed kids' toys, lying on the carpet, strewn all over the carpet. And prior to that moment, those were not things I would notice. In my mind, my wife is going to come and pick up those toys. She's going to come and pack those blankets, right? But that wasn't me taking responsibility for my wife, who I love, my children, who I'm trying to raise to be responsible adults. So I guess the point of the story, I think one of the things that probably helps me a lot is just to take responsibility for the things that I see around me that are wrong. Sometimes it is as simple as just picking up the blanket, but the more challenging ones are where you and your partner need to sit down together and say, hey, I'm struggling with X, name the issue, right? And without an accusatory tone, so because you're trying to attack the issue, not attack each other as husband and wife, which is also something I've also struggled with in my marriage. Yeah, but that one was a really big one that went.
Okay, I get the feeling you sort of moved to a different. You didn't address what I was asking.
Oh,
but
yeah.
We're gonna get to that, like dealing with the spouse, because that's a big one. And probably needs its own exclusive episode. But I was really talking about in terms of, I guess maybe I hate the word, but self-care.
Oh, yes.
Like, how do you coping mechanisms? Because let's be real, it's a stressful situation, and being a man out here is very different from being a man back home. I mean, literally, when you're a man back home, if like usually have a gathering, the men just sit and talk, and the women run around and do everything. And out here, it's probably the reverse.
The opposite.
Like when you're having a gathering, the men are running around doing everything, and the women are the ones sitting and chatting, waiting for all that to be done. Because they've also got to worry about the kids and all these other things. The dynamic is so different, and it's quite natural. I even remember like when our mother-in-law came when Angela was born. She was helping us out in the early days, and normally I do the cooking. I do a lot of the cooking, and she was like, "No, I can't eat." No, that's not possible. But for us, it was like, what's wrong? It's so normal, Like I'm the one who does this. This is one of the things I do. You're helping us out, it's fine. So it was one of those things, So I don't know, like, how do you cope? Like I was talking about, us, we usually take our walks on the weekend together. We just reflect what's been going on over the week, and how we're dealing any troubles or going through any new situations, and how we're dealing with them, and maybe possible solutions that we might have in what we have faced. And that, I guess, for us, I think that's one thing that helps us. You get to touch base with other guys, and having that guy time. And I guess you get to talk about things you may not talk about with your spouse. So what else are other things that maybe you do that, help you cope? I know recently you acquired a toy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good reflection, because I think one of the challenges, especially around the walks that we do just as guides, is that it's hard to make time for those things, right? Because like you say, you're running a lot of the logistics around the house. So like just doing it at a time where like 6 a.m. in the morning, go out for your walk, come back by 8. The family is just starting the day, but you've already had the 2 hours of you time where you're doing something that you love to do is one. I think for me personally, maybe two things that really do take the pressure off, put these bags of responsibility down. The one is PlayStation.
That's the toy I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey. I've been waiting since the PlayStation 5 was announced. So like, I need to get one of the, there's a little bit of backstory. I had a PS4 before the 5. The last time I played my PlayStation 4 was the day my oldest daughter was born.
Okay.
So like for like 9 years, I'm like, one day I'll go back.
Today's that day.
Today's that day. The second thing is just reading. Like one of the things I use the most, one of the things I've paid for with my own money that I use the most are my earpods. Right? It's like I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm shopping. They just help you, distract the mind.
On that, like you're saying, you spent, I'm sure, a considerable amount of money. I remember when I was back in Zim, I remember talking to my brother, and I was like, when the Beats came out, and the Beats are going for like $150, $200. Who spends $200 on a pair of headphones or earphones? Now, I'm one of those people, but I get it. No, go on, yeah.
I mean, because that with all of the reading we do, which in my mind has completely opened up my mind. It's like, if I have one piece of advice for any young man or any old man or any middle-aged man out there, is read. Doesn't matter what you're reading. Read. It just opens up the mind completely.
I guess I would maybe just add that, but I guess it's a personal thing that read, write, repeat. And the reason I say I add write in there is because, like, Jordan Peterson you were talking about earlier, he actually says when you write something down, that's when you are organizing your thoughts. Now, I'm not saying write a book or write anything you need to publish, but whatever you're thinking, whatever you're going through, it's really important. Write things down if you have any idea. Like maybe there's something you're not thinking about, an idea or something that's been introduced to you, and you're now facing it and you're trying to fully understand it. I think it's good to write it down, because when you write it down, you see how much you understand it. You are now, it's almost like it's because someone else could read it and say, oh, okay, this is the level of understanding. So when you write something down, and I think that just improves you as a person if you can articulate that. So just read, write, repeat. To any young man, I think that is so important, just read, and these days, some people may not like books, and I think podcasts are a good way to also, like you're saying, when you're doing the dishes, you just put in an earpod or an earphone, and then whatever's going on, you spend your 30 minutes or 1 hour, whatever it is, you're sweeping, you're washing, you're doing all that stuff, and you've sort of killed two birds with one stone, and it's not as mentally stressful because you're doing something you enjoy on the side, maybe even laughing half the time.
You might find yourself looking forward to doing dishes now.
Exactly. Now, sometimes, like for me, I know sometimes I'm like, no, let me do the dishes, because I know it means I don't get to do something else that wouldn't allow me to be listening while I'm doing it. So that particular chore is now more enjoyable because it affords me an opportunity to do something else. So that's really cool. I think I can relate to that a lot. Like I was talking about, stretching out, like when you go out. I'll be honest, I'm really guilty of that. Like, I guess sometimes I'll just be like walking, just like, and in the shops, you grab a trolley, you're pushing it, and I know there's nothing I need at the far end of that shop, but I'm just going to walk there and come back, and I park the car as far from the entrance as possible. Just those small things, just drag it out, and you come back and you continue to function, and now everybody's used to that. They know if they send me out, it's gonna take a while before I come back, so it's normal.
And it's win-win now.
Exactly. Yes, you're finding that balance. So I think it's really important. And talk about reading, and sometimes even if I guess like with watching movies or series and whatnot, I guess you can do that. But I think the problem of it is that when it's now both audio and visual, it takes too much of your concentration, because sometimes you can listen to a book while the kids are playing games. You can watch them. But if your eyes are down now at a screen, you are basically cancelled completely, as opposed to maybe 50%.
You're no longer present.
So, and I think half the time your job is really guardianship and supervision, not so much interfering, but just making sure everyone's safe from a distance. So I think that's one of the things that's a good coping mechanism. And I think there's something else, and I know like the women do this a lot, because they have the energy, almost every weekend, we're doing a ladies get together, we're doing a ladies this, she's getting a baby shower, she's getting married, they have the energy to do that. And the more reliable you are as a guy to stay with the kids, the more they're going to do that. And fair enough, it's a time for them to let off some steam and relax and have some fun. So, and I think as guys, we went on a failed fishing trip. Failed as in we didn't catch anything, but it was really good. We got to spend time. I think it was about 10 of us. We really had a good time hanging out, talking all the things, freely, and just, it was really good fun, So I think that's something maybe we should aim to do more of, because I think that helps you as guys.
It's very important to schedule those things in. It's like, I think it's good to be spontaneous. Like maybe even if they say there's 10 friends, someone just says, guys, I'm going for a movie tomorrow, who wants to come? Maybe 3 people will go. I think those things are always good. But it's also good to schedule like some of the bigger things like fishing and
the mini golf. That was cool.
Because I think one thing it does is it creates a village around you of other guys who are going through very similar experiences. But unless you are fishing or playing golf and having these random sideline conversations, you feel very alone. You can feel very alone as a guy. Which is like, I know that it's fun to fish, but I would say what I took away from that was just walking away saying, wow, I can't believe there's 10 other people who are going through exactly what I'm going through. And it's only 10 because there were 10 people on the boat. I'm sure if there were 20.
Because I know I spoke to some of the guys who would have liked to come along, but it was one of those things. And like, you're talking about that, like you can feel so alone. And you think about it, you live like literally down the road. It's like, I think as the crow flies, it's maybe 800 meters. 5-10 minute walk, 2-minute drive. Just so, but it's very possible if we're not intentional like about meeting up over the weekends and having those walks, we can go for like an entire quarter without seeing each other, and we live so close together. So I think it's really important to be intentional about scheduling those times. And I think as guys, we're more relaxed about it. You're always thinking more, okay, in the house this needs to be done, that needs to be done. So that it's less likely to happen. But I think we really need to make it happen, because you can really feel like, wait a minute, I'm alone in this, and yeah, that can it can be, and when you feel alone, it can get overwhelming, you know. So yeah, that's one of those things.
Which is where all the mental health things start coming in. Because I think now I've got Brighton, I've got Norman, I've got a few guys around me who if I'm quiet for say 2 or 3 days, it's not normal to them, right? So it's like I'm getting a call. What's going on?
yeah.
Which is an opportunity for me to say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this," or just you know what, you know. But it's created a standard, an expectation now. I need to stay connected with other people who are walking the same journey as me, which I think is probably one of the most helpful things that anyone can do. If like just find 1 or 2 people around you, share your life with those people. I know we share our lives with our partners, with our wives primarily, but it's important to just have some testosterone. Someone to tell you, you know, you're talking rubbish, you know, pick your socks up.
That's true. And
you know, you're making a good point.
Yeah, and I guess you're talking about it like someone to, because as a guy, you can't, in the house, I think you can't really vent or complain, because that would be a source of problem. So you can go and complain, then the guy said, yeah, get some sense, man, or do this or do that. So, you know, you do need to sometimes complain for the sake of complaining, but you can't do it, you know, to your spouse, because that will only cause problems. And, you know, you can come back sober and you've deflated and you're all good. So yeah, I guess maybe now we can move back to circle back to what you were talking about earlier, like, you know, like dealing with your spouse, because, you know, I think that's, my goodness, I think that's probably the most crucial thing that affects the whole thing, because the time you have together, you know, is so dependent on, because you're always busy. The kids take front and center priority over everything else, basically living for your children, their schooling, whatever, food, everything, their health, all these things. So now you find very little, the time that you as and you and your spouse get together is very, you know, limited. And again, like we're talking about with your guy time, you need to be intentional about it. Otherwise, genuinely speaking, you know, that time you just be like,
it won't happen.
Yeah, you're basically roommates who have these little people running around the house who share your DNA, and you're just watching over them. That's really how it can be. And I think, you know, it's even worse, like where, like in situations where in couples where maybe both of them or one of them works shifts. You get to see each other even less, and it becomes very formal, the relationship, you know. It's very functional, like, you know, we can afford to pay the bills and we can afford to take care of the children, but we don't really know each other. And the times we see each other, maybe in a day we overlap 4 hours. Of that 4 hours, maybe you're sleeping to catch up on your sleep from the shift, and you're taking care of the kids, so you become strangers, quite literally, you know. So I think that's one of those things where, like, I know for us, like, what we do is like we have like usually every evening before we sleep, we have a book that we'll be reading, you know, and then you go over the chapter, you know, we pray, we talk about it, and then we pray again at the end. And that usually helps us because, you know, we're reading about books that are relevant, whether it's a marriage book or it's something about your faith or something about parenting. And then it gives you an opportunity to talk about these things, you know, more openly, like intention. That's all you're doing. The kids are all sleeping, and that gives you that time, you know. And I guess that's one thing.
I mean, it's a pretty important thing, because I think for me, one thing that strikes me the most being in this context is that, like you say, we are all so time poor. But when you think about your partner or your wife, like, you two are one, right? It's like this hand and that hand, like it's one body, two people, but one body type thing. But it's so inspirational what you're sharing, because even if it ends up being 10 minutes, just connect for 10 minutes, right? Just connect, as opposed to staying disconnected. Tomorrow a whole new day is piling on, you're further disconnected, and you never know, like 4 weeks, couple of years down the line, you wonder, I don't even know this person.
Like, why am I still with them, you know? And and I think, like, for us, it's really helped because, you know, I think there was this book we're doing, we just finished recently, and it was talking about couples need to have a date night at least once every 4 weeks. And, you know, that's something, like, we don't really do date nights, you know, like, we don't, but we do that. And I was like, for me, I think date night is a good idea, but I think in the context, like, if you're never seeing each other, then yes, it is great if you can do a date night, but I think if you're waiting 4 weeks, I think that's not enough.
It's not enough,
because there are so many things, you know, you can drift apart quite literally, because it can take a few days to really drift, you know, like something, you can maybe do something and it can be it can be misinterpreted. And then if you're waiting for 4 weeks before you have an opportunity where you're alone and you're together, and then you're talking about such things, so many other things would have compounded that it's now out of context, it doesn't make sense, you're so on such different pages. So I think that having in between times where like daily, because remember, before the whole family and the kids came along, you were boyfriend and girlfriend, and that part of your relationship needs to remain alive throughout all these additional things that are now happening over and above it. Otherwise, I think it'll be a disaster.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely true. You have to have, and I'll be honest, I will probably maybe half 3 out of 4 days or 4 out of 3 days in a week, my wife and I will connect and just catch up on what's happening in our lives, because we're both working full-time jobs and different time zones and all those things. But like the concept of like daily or as often as you can, like being intentional about that is absolutely critical. The date night thing is also absolutely critical, because I think it's important as well to kind of step away from the house, even if you're going for McDonald's or going to a restaurant, or I don't know, whatever it is, go to the park and have a picnic. It doesn't matter. Just go and be adults. Right? And just tell some jokes, reminisce a little bit on how things used to be. Be optimistic about things could be in the future. Just whatever you do as a couple, it's really important to make that. I just say that because it was my wife's birthday last month, and for her birthday we went out for dinner, and I just couldn't believe how much fun I had just sitting next to another adult who I care about and just listening to the things she had to say and sharing and enjoying some good
racking
food.
up those brownie points.
It's such an enjoying. It's just like I'm thinking, I should schedule the next one. Even though we're trying to do the weekly, daily things. That is absolutely.
Yeah, and I think like it's a good thing you're talking about. Like I think one of the things that's really hard is like to be vulnerable with your partner. It gets harder, and the less time you spend just the two of you, the harder it gets. And that is like one of the most important things. They talk about love languages and all that. When the more time you spend together, just the two of you, the more likely you are to stay in tune in speaking that person's love language. You remain connected. You understand that, look, no, I'm drifting, or no, but that thing you did there, like, hey, I'm feeling down about it, and then, oh, okay, we're alone, what's going on? There's more of that space, and I think it's really good as men, obviously you're not supposed to, I say you're not supposed to, but I think it's good to be vulnerable, but the idea is that, you're supposed to be the strong one, you're supposed to be all that, the macho guy, and be the support. But I think it's also good for your spouse to see you open up and see, like, look, this is also the person, he also has feelings, and okay, if he can open up to me, then I can open up to him. I know we're safe, and we're not gonna use this as ammunition when we fight. And I think the more you do that, it's like I guess a muscle that you work out. The more you do, the stronger you get, and the bigger you get, and that way that just fosters a better relationship, and like you guys are talking about, like I think you guys, your work schedules are a bit different, but at least there's that effort. It's not 7 days a week, but it's something. And that, I think that is the most important thing, that when the steps are made in that direction, you are getting there, as opposed to, because anything is better than zero. And that's the really crucial thing. Now I'm looking at our time, and I think we've been going on, and I think we could go on and on and on. We take 2-hour walks on the weekend, and we talk about so many other things. We haven't even gotten into politics and all that. But I think those are topics for another story. I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, maybe just as we wrap it up.
Maybe just a question to you as well. I'll say something while you're thinking. Like, if the guys listening and watching, like, is there like a single takeaway you might give to say from what we've discussed? Here's how I think, men should be approaching, how to be more productive contributors to the family, to society, and all of that. So while you're thinking, I think for me, I go back to the point we made at the beginning to say, like, look at it as a journey, right? If I look at where I was as a man in the context of my wife, my kids, my job, my family and all of that, right? Compared to today, I have grown. I'm a much stronger person emotionally, right? I'm probably more open-minded, given all of the reading and the conversations we have. It's like, for me, on a journey, on a trajectory. I'm better today than I was, a few years ago. Do I want to be where I am today? I still feel in my heart that I could be further along in the journey, which is probably a good thing, because it helps me kind of work out what I should be doing to make the, progress that I feel like I want to be making. But I just encourage guys, look at it as a journey, and maybe I'll cheat and say two things. Have a network of guy friends around you to talk to and kind of walk that journey with as you go.
Okay, maybe to answer you, I'm a football fan and I like football, so maybe I'll use the football analogy. I think the most important thing we talked about in all of this here is, like you're talking about, you're one with your wife, your spouse. You are one. So in being one, it's like you're one team. Don't score own goals. Don't be spiteful don't do things that are detrimental to the team. If your spouse succeeds, you're happy for her because her success is ultimately your success. If she's promoted at work, it's for your benefit. The pot gets bigger. If she does something great and if she's doing something well, support her, let her thrive and flourish, because a happy woman, happy wife, happy house, that all those kinds of things, that way if you're supporting her when she's doing well and she's happy, then obviously it's easier for her and natural for her to support you when you're doing well. So I think that's one of the most important things. And like as a man, I think like you're talking about, being aware of what's going on around you, always, and I was talking to my brother the other time, and I was saying to him, find a new room. If you're the smartest person in the room, find a new room. And I think one way of doing that, sometimes it's hard to say, look, I don't know older men or more experienced men around me, but goodness, like out here, Wi-Fi and data are not a problem. Go on these various podcasts and platforms. There's so much information out there that people are just talking about, discussing these ideas, that you can learn so much. Get into another room, even if it's virtual, but learn, be open, understand what's going on. How are other people dealing with it? Or are you doing the right thing? And how can you improve? Always continue improving, because as you grow, you are changing. Your spouse is changing. Your children are changing. So the situation is always changing. So if you're not changing, then you're going backwards. You must always keep moving. I guess maybe I've spoken too much, but I guess that's what I would say. Once again, we're at the end of this episode. Thank you, Cedric, for joining us. Thank you, everybody who's watched. And if you've got any questions, comments, please throw them in the comment section and let us know. And maybe if you want to have another exclusive episode with us too, if we like what you heard, then maybe it will happen in the future. Who knows? But thank you for supporting Candid Convos with Anna B. Like, share, subscribe, and take care of yourselves.
All the best, people. Take care.